Welcome back to the Begin Purpose podcast, and welcome to the next episode in the Body Mass Identity, Weight Loss Identity track. In our last episode, we talked about the narrator you didn't choose, that inner voice that comments on your body all day long, in mirrors and photos and waistbands and weigh-ins. You became a court reporter for a day. You wrote down what the voice actually said, without editing and without verdicts. And for some of you, that transcript was hard to look at. Maybe some of what you wrote down stung. Maybe some of it was harsher than anything you would ever say to another human being. Today, I want to continue that journey by looking directly at that sting, because it has a name, and naming it changes what you can do about it. This episode is called Shame versus Guilt, and by the end of it, I'm going to walk you through one of the most important tools in this entire framework, the Shame to Dignity reframe. If yesterday's transcript hurt to read, this episode is for you. I promised you that, and I keep my promises. Let me start with a story from the Body Mass Identity work. Her name is Dana. Every single time Dana passed a mirror, or a window with reflective glass, or even the dark screen of her phone before it lit up, a single word flickered through her mind. Disgusting. It happened so automatically that Dana had stopped registering it as a thought at all. It was just there. Background noise. So constant that on the rare occasion she went a few hours without catching a reflection, the silence felt almost disorienting, like a hum you don't notice until it stops. And here's the part of Dana's story I want you to sit with. Dana would never have spoken to another person the way she spoke to herself. If a friend confided a struggle with their body, Dana would respond with warmth, with reassurance, with real care. But that warmth never seemed to find a path back to herself. It was as if there were two completely separate moral systems running inside her. One for other people, generous and compassionate, and one for herself, harsh and unforgiving. And she had never questioned why. She'd never even fully noticed they were different. Maybe you recognize that. Maybe your narrator notes from yesterday revealed your own version of it. A voice that grades you on a scale nobody else in your life is subjected to. So let's get precise about what that voice is doing, because precision is where the power is. There are two words people use interchangeably that could not be more different: shame and guilt. The difference between them is subtle in language and enormous in effect. Guilt is the feeling that follows when you believe you've done something that didn't line up with your values or your intentions. Guilt is specific. It's about an action, a choice, a behavior. I said something unkind and I feel bad about it. That's guilt. And here's the thing about guilt. Uncomfortable as it is, it actually serves a function. It points at a behavior. It says, that thing you did, that might be worth addressing. Guilt tends to motivate care. There's a verb in it. There's something to do. Shame is a different animal entirely. Shame isn't about what you did. It's about what you believe you are. Listen to Dana's word again. Disgusting. There's no verb in that sentence, no specific event, nothing to repair. It's a statement about identity, global, total, wall-to-wall. And because there's nothing specific to address, shame doesn't lead anywhere productive. It doesn't motivate change. What it does do, reliably, and this has been studied for decades, is motivate hiding, withdrawal, self-protection through avoidance. Shame doesn't send you toward the pool, the party, the doctor's appointment, the mirror. It sends you away from them. And this brings me to something I need you to hear plainly, because it may undo years of a very painful misunderstanding. That harsh inner voice, the one that's been calling you names, supposedly to keep you motivated, was never going to produce the change it seemed to be demanding. Never. Not because you didn't try hard enough to listen to it. Not because you're somehow immune to its threats. But because shame, by its very nature, doesn't work that way for anyone. It's not a more intense version of motivation. It's a different thing entirely, aimed at a target, your fundamental worth, that was never the actual issue. So many people carry a quiet belief that goes something like this: if I'm too kind to myself, I'll let myself off the hook. The cruelty is the engine. But look at the evidence of your own life. Has the voice that says disgusting ever once made things better? Or has it made you avoid the mirror, the photo, the appointment, the very things that would have helped? Shame promises motivation and delivers hiding. Every time. Now, where did that voice come from? Because this matters, especially if you're mid-journey right now. Shame-burdened patterns almost never originate with the person carrying them. The voice that says disgusting was, almost always, heard somewhere first. Sometimes directly, a comment from a family member, a classmate, even a medical provider. Sometimes indirectly, absorbed from years of cultural messaging about which bodies are acceptable and which are not.
And over time, an external voice becomes an internal one. It gets so thoroughly internalized that it stops sounding like anyone else's voice at all.
It just sounds like the truth. That's part of why shame feels so immovable. It doesn't present itself as an opinion or even as a thought. It presents itself as a fact. In the same category as the sky is blue, something so basic it doesn't seem to need examining. But here's what I want you to slow down and notice. That fact is a thought. A very old, very repeated thought. A thought, not a law of nature. And thoughts, unlike laws of nature, can be examined. There's one more layer here, and it matters for anyone whose body is changing fast. Shame accumulates. In this framework, we call it shame load, and it builds like sediment. A comment from a relative at age 9. A gym class humiliation at 13. A doctor's offhand remark at 26. A stranger's stare on a train at 34. None of those moments, on their own, might seem like much. But they don't pass through and disappear. They settle. There's a man in this work named Frank, 51, who said it perfectly. I've been the same weight, give or take, for almost 10 years. But I feel like I'm carrying more than I used to. Like it's gotten heavier, even though the number hasn't changed. What Frank was carrying wasn't measured in pounds. It was shame load. A decade of moments, mostly forgotten individually, that had left their residue all the same. And here's why this is so important for you, right now, mid-journey. Shame load doesn't correlate with body size the way people assume. People in larger bodies can carry very little of it. People in smaller bodies can carry enormous amounts, which means shame load cannot be fixed by changing the body. And so many of us have tried exactly that, hoping that if the body changed enough, the shame would dissolve along with it. Sometimes it fades, briefly, but shame that accumulated over years rarely dissolves just because a number on a scale moves. It often just finds something new to attach itself to, a different problem area, a different perceived flaw. So if you've lost significant weight and the voice is still there, still harsh, maybe just aiming at a new target, you are not doing this wrong. You've discovered what shame load actually is, a weight the scale could never measure and was never going to remove. It isn't reduced by changing the body. It's reduced by changing the relationship. So how do we change the relationship? Not with willpower, not with arguing, with a tool. It's called the Shame to Dignity Reframe, and it has 5 parts. Yesterday's narrator notes gave you the raw material. Today you learn what to do with it. Part 1. The old shame statement. What is the exact thought? In its own words. Not cleaned up. Dana's was, I am disgusting. Part 2. The source. Where might this thought have come from originally? Whose voice, whose message, whose moment does it echo? For Dana, it was a combination of years of media imagery, a few specific comments from extended family in her teenage years, and the general cultural noise around bodies that don't fit. Part 3. The effect. What does this thought actually do to your mood, your behavior, your choices when it shows up? For Dana, this one was sobering. The thought made her avoid mirrors, avoid certain clothing, and over time avoid certain relationships, including a romantic relationship she ended partly because she couldn't believe someone could find her attractive, and the discomfort of being seen that way became unbearable. Notice what we're doing here. We're not asking whether the thought is true, we're asking what it costs. That question is often far more revealing. Part 4. The dignity-based truth. What would a more accurate, more dignity-respecting statement be? One that doesn't deny difficulty, but doesn't collapse into global self-judgment either. Dana's was this. I'm having a hard time with how my body looks right now, and that difficulty is real. But it's a feeling about a moment, not a fact about who I am as a person. Hear how that works. It doesn't pretend everything is fine. It doesn't skip to celebration. It simply refuses to let a hard feeling impersonate a permanent fact. And part 5, the aligned action. Given this more accurate statement, what's one small action that fits? For Dana, it was this. The next time the word disgusting surfaced automatically, she didn't argue with it or force it away. She simply noticed it, and gently, without drama, offered the dignity-based truth as an alternative. The way you might offer a second opinion, not a denial that the first thought exists, a companion to it. And over time, with repetition, the dignity-based truth tends to get a little louder, and the shame-based one a little quieter. I ought because it was defeated in an argument, because it was finally given some company. Now I know what some of you are thinking, because you've heard the standard advice 100 times. Just love yourself. And if that advice has ever made you feel worse instead of better, even a little irritated, you're not alone, and there's a real reason for that. Self-love, as a destination, can feel impossibly far away when you're standing in front of a mirror hearing disgusting on autopilot. Being told to leap straight to love from that starting point is like being told to sprint while you're still learning to stand. It can even add a new layer of shame. Now you're disgusting and failing at self-love. That's why this framework doesn't ask you for love, it asks you for dignity. Dignity is a smaller, closer, more achievable step, and that's precisely its value. Dignity doesn't require you to feel good about your body. It just requires treating yourself, your whole self, body included, as something that deserves basic care, the same way you'd extend basic care to anyone else going through something hard. You don't have to love someone to believe they deserve dignity. That's the whole point. Dignity is available before love. It's a stepping stone toward it, not a substitute that pretends to skip the steps in between. And a word about how this fits alongside the rest of your journey, because this is identity management while losing weight, not instead of your medical care, alongside it. Your doctor manages the biology. Your nutritionist manages the fuel. Your medication, if you're on one, does what it does. None of them can manage the voice. That part is yours. And if you're working with a coach, a nutritionist, a doctor, or a counselor, bring this to them. Telling a professional, here's the exact sentence my inner voice says, here's where I think it came from, and here's what it makes me avoid, turns an appointment about numbers into an appointment about you. That's not oversharing. That's some of the most useful information you can put in front of someone whose job is to help you. So here is your practice for today, and as always, it's built to be the smallest possible step. Take one statement from yesterday's narrator notes, just one. If you didn't do yesterday's practice, no shame, and I mean that literally. Just catch one comment from the narrator today and use that. Then walk it through the 5 parts. Write the old statement exactly as the voice says it. Ask where it might have come from, whose voice it echoes. Name what it does to you when it shows up. Then write one dignity-based truth to sit alongside it, honest about the difficulty, silent on the verdict. And choose one tiny aligned action. You are not trying to make the shame statement disappear. You're not trying to win an argument. You're introducing a second voice into a conversation that for a long time has only had one. If we do this once today, that's a win. And notice, it's a win the scale can't measure. That's a non-weight win. Log it. It counts. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Begin Purpose podcast. In our next episode, we follow shame to the place where it does its quietest damage, your actual daily life. Because shame doesn't just talk, it shrinks things. The pool you stopped swimming in, the photos you stopped appearing in, the hand you stopped raising in meetings. Next time we talk about the life that got smaller and how to pick one thing, just one, and take it back. Until then, do today's practice. One statement, 5 parts, one companion voice. And remember, a failed method does not mean a failed person. You are not broken. This is Begin Purpose, and today is a good day to trade 1 ounce of shame for a pound of dignity. One quick note before you go. This podcast offers identity and self-reflection tools. It is not medical, psychological, or nutritional advice. Always work with your doctor, nutritionist, or licensed professional on decisions about your health, medications, or eating.